it was just so awesome to be working in the Bay Area where I grew up. I'll never forget the first time someone asked me for my autograph. I was getting gas at University and Melville. There was a gas station there. And I walked in and the person said, "Hey, you're from Channel 2. Can I get your autograph?" And I went, "Sure." And I'll never forget that moment. It was just, I felt like, God, I arrived. I made it.
Welcome to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. On today's episode, we have the honor of having Frank Somerville on the podcast. And to those that don't know, those listening from the Bay Area or originally from the Bay Area would know who this is. Frank Somerville has been one of the renowned Bay Area news broadcasters and very well known in the Bay Area. Frank Somerville is a well-known name. 10 o'clock news on KTVU, 5 o'clock news, mornings on 2. Very, probably the number one, I would say, news broadcaster in the Bay Area. And in recent years, he's faced some challenges. He's been let go from KTVU. A lot of headlines have been surrounding Frank Somerville. He's gotten arrested. You just do a Google search for Frank Somerville. You'll find all the headlines recently about him. And I'm so honored to have the privilege of having him on the podcast to share his story and have him give the opportunity to share his insights on his journey, not only of what's happening in the recent years, but also his journey of broadcasting, how he fell into this journey. And oh my goodness, this is going to be an amazing interview. I don't think he's really shared his full story really on a platform, and so I'm excited to have him on the podcast and to share his most authentic self. And you're gonna hear a lot of stuff that is not been shared. You're gonna hear really a lot of his raw story and his perspectives, and I really hope that you enjoy learning from the challenges that he's had and how he's had to tackle it and what he's doing now, because all this is so recent. It's just only within the last year, less than a year, that he's been able to make a turnaround. And so hope you enjoy this podcast interview with Frank Somerville. Hope you enjoy. Well, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. I'm really honored to have you on.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you wanting to hear what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been I grew up really just watching you on the 10 o'clock news on Channel 2 or KTVU, and so it's awesome to kind of talk to you one-on-one and really have a conversation about your life in journalism, news broadcasting, and also a little bit about what you're doing today. So I'm really excited to take a deep dive and just have a great conversation.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So for those that listened in the intro, Frank Somerville was for literally over 30 years with KTVU and journalism and news broadcasting. So Frank, I wanted to start off really about your roots in your interest in journalism and what really sparked your interest in this space.
It's a crazy story, and I'll make it quick. I always wanted to help people. That was my goal in life, was to make a difference, to help people. So at one point, I wanted to be a police officer. At one point, I wanted to be a psychologist. At one point, I wanted to be an actor, and yet none of those things totally fulfilled me. So I was at UCLA, and I mean, this is the honest God truth. I'm looking through the course catalog, and it says Comm 10, Communications 10. And I thought, yeah, that sounds stupid. And my roommate said, no, take it. It's an easy A. And so I took it. And I will never, ever, ever forget being in that lecture hall. And as the guy started talking about communications, it was like, bingo, that's what I want to do. And so when you look at it, being in communications for me fulfilled all of the things that I had wanted. I could understand how people tick. That fascinated me. I could make a difference, just like a police officer. And I could, I don't want to say perform. I want to say just being on the air, being live, it's happening now. Being able to use my voice and pictures and video to communicate. That was what I wanted to do, and that one class totally changed my life. And from that point on, I knew what I wanted to do.
No, that's really amazing. And then once you finished school, what was kind of your first job or first move after you finished?
Well, so I transferred from UCLA. I didn't really like UCLA. It was too on. Everyone was on. Everyone was going to be the next actor, the next greatest, blah, blah, blah. And it just wasn't for me. So I transferred to SF State, which has a great broadcast department. And while I was at SF State, I got an internship both at KTVU, where I finished my career, but also at KFTY in Santa Rosa, Channel 50. And the internship at Channel 50 was amazing. I got to go shoot stories. I got to write stories. I got to edit stories. I mean, it was such a great learning experience. And what happened is that a reporter at KFTY left, so they hired me. So that's how I got into the business, and I was making $12,000 a year. I mean, not a heck of a lot of money, but I was like, wow, I'm working on TV. I've got the lead story tonight. Oh my God, this is incredible. I had no idea what I was doing, but at least I was in. And that was the coolest thing in the world.
And then tell us a little about, because most of your career, I think over 30 years, was spent with KTVU. How was you mentioned you had an internship with KTVU, and how did you transition to
Well,
uh, really
so,
launch your career into that?
so what happened is that I had the internship, and the news director was a guy named Fred Zender, and I loved Fred. He's arguably the best news director in the history of news directors. I mean, that's how good he was, and that's why Channel 2 was the success that it was. So when I was working in Minneapolis, I got a job as the morning anchor in Minneapolis, and then I got a job as a noon anchor in Rhode Island. And I always kept in touch with Fred. And I finally, when I was in Rhode Island, I sent him a tape, and I was so scared to send the tape that I didn't follow up. And 2 weeks later, he called me and goes, "Dude, what the hell? You sent me a tape and you don't even follow up. What's going on?" And I said, I just figured you weren't interested. And he goes, "No, we're very interested." And I flew out and got an interview at KTVU, and I got hired. And it was like a dream come true for me. I had watched Channel 2 all my life, and it was just so awesome to be working in the Bay Area where I grew up. I'll never forget the first time someone asked me for my autograph. I was getting gas at University and Melvia. There was a gas station there, and I walked in, and the person said, "Hey, you're from Channel 2. Can I get your autograph?" And I went, "Sure." And I'll never forget that moment. It was just, I felt like, my God, I arrived. I made it. How cool is this? And that's how I got started at KTV.
What was your first role with KTVU?
So my first role was I worked on what's called Mornings on 2, and that was a newscast from 7 to 9 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really awesome because we were going up against the networks.
Yeah.
So we were going up against Good Morning America, the Today Show, CBS This Morning. And no one had ever done that. And I'll never forget the general manager at the time, Kevin O'Brien, said, "Do whatever you want. You know, just go out there and talk and give people something to talk about over the water cooler." And at the same time, we also delivered news. And I remember watching the ratings, and the ratings just went, they kept creeping up. It's like one day we'd be number one. And then 2 days in a row, we'd be number one. And then pretty soon we were just number one. And and Channel 2 is still number one in the morning. But it was so great just to watch our growth and the whole creative process that came along with it. And we ended up dominating the morning market, and we've never stopped. And it was just freaking awesome. I mean, for lack of a better word, it's freaking awesome. It was one of the coolest times in my life, watching this happen.
Mm. And then when was it that you transitioned to the 10 o'clock news, or were you doing both at the same time?
So what happened was, Dennis Richmond.
Yeah.
So first of all, what happened was is we had a 5 o'clock. We started a 5 o'clock newscast, and so I said I'd be totally happy to split time and do mornings on 2 and then the 5 o'clock newscast. And they said yes. I said okay. And then when Dennis retired, um, I didn't know it was going to happen, but ideally I'd be the obvious choice. Uh, but but again, they could easily look outside. But you know what? And I'll always admire them for this. They took a chance on me,
Mm.
and they promoted from within. And I always like organizations that promote from within. It says we believe in our people, we believe in our players, and Channel 2 believed in me. So they gave me the 5, 6, 10, and eventually the 11. And I was so honored. It was just such a I was just so honored
Mm.
because they believed in me, and that was really cool.
Yeah. And now reflecting back to your career in journalism and news broadcasting, what would you say were some of those like memorable moments or things that stand out that you just like these unforgettable moments throughout your career?
Well, I mean, there are unforgettable moments, both on the air and off the air. I remember I during mornings on 2 once, we did a story on impotence, and I said impotent, and I pronounced it impotent. And we cut to Ross McGowan, and he goes, "They've taken Frank to the home now." I mean, it was hysterical. We joke like that all the time, and but I think really the biggest moments for me were the stories that I wanted to cover. And so I've witnessed 2 executions of San Quentin. I've flown with the Blue Angel. I've witnessed an autopsy. And I went on what's called Urban Shield, which at that time was a SWAT competition where you'd have these SWAT guys, these SWAT teams from all over the country, go for 48 hours straight from one scenario to the next with no sleep. And the Alameda County Sheriff's Department invited me to participate. It's the first time they ever invited a reporter to participate. And I learned so much from that. And I think that all reporters should go through a gun training program where it's shoot or don't shoot. So you see what happens, how fast you have to make up your mind. And only then can you provide better coverage of events when people are shot and killed. It's not saying the police are right. It's just saying you have a different understanding. You have a better understanding. And so I think those are the things that really shaped me. And also, I I have a huge following on Facebook. I have 575,000 people who follow me. And so I went I went on my own time to funerals for the young black men and women who were killed in Oakland. And I went because I knew how they would be covered on KTVU. It would say, hey, so and so was killed in Oakland today. This is the 25th homicide of the year. Last year they had 29, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't say anything. And so I went to these funerals, and they were gut wrenching. They were all open casket. But I went because I wanted to say to people that even though maybe this guy was a gangbanger, he still had a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister. Wanted to show them as people, and I think that's what really started my downfall. I didn't know how to deal with that. I felt like I was in a pall of sadness. I went to 2 funerals for police officers killed in the line of duty as well. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about their stories. I couldn't leave work at work. It consumed me. And I just didn't know how to deal with it.
Mm.
And that led to real mental health issues with me.
Do you feel like that's a larger issue within that your journalism and news broadcasting space where um, people are reporting on difficult things that are going on within the community they live in, and it's really hard to leave work at work?
You know, it's a great question. Honestly, what I really believe, and I'm just going to be blunt, I
Yeah.
think most reporters and anchors care less.
Mm.
I don't think they could. I just don't think they could care. They just want to get their paycheck. They just want to read the news. I mean, a former co-anchor of mine told me that her 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 biggest responsibility was just reading what was in front of her, nothing more. And I could never do that. I couldn't. And in hindsight, I wish I could have a little bit, but I just couldn't. I cared about these stories. I cared about the stories, and I think when it comes to a lot of reporters, they're just not like that. They
Mm.
don't really care about the stories. They're just reporting the news, and they've cut themselves off completely. I'm not someone who could do that. I just can't. And sadly, that led to my downfall.
Mm. Yeah, I think just looking back, because I'm a huge news fan. I consume news. That's my daily routine in the mornings. Even growing up, that was our thing, watching the news, staying connected with what's going on in the world. And you could really tell in based on the reporting, which ones actually care and which ones are able to connect with the people. And I think that's oftentimes what's missed is when you're not able to connect with the situation, connect with the people, or even show that careness, and it really shows in the reporting. And that's probably why you were such a great figure in the Bay Area with KTVU because you did things a bit differently, kind of off air.
I did, and I mean, I did. It's hard for me to take accolades, but yes, I did. And I remember so many people at the station just saying, "Why do you do that? Why do you want to go there? Why do you want to talk to that person? Why? I mean, aren't you worried about your safety?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a human being. I want to tell their story." And I was just absolutely stunned by the lack of concern or caring for these people. It was just to them, it was just another story. And okay, the story's over. Let's move on.
Mhm.
I just couldn't. I reread a post that I did in 2015, and it was it was after a woman was being chased by some guys, and I don't know, maybe drugs were involved. And she was shot point blank on the head right in front of her 4-year-old son. And I remember I went by the scene after the newscast and I talked to the officer. I saw the officer playing with a little boy.
Mm.
And I said to the officer under my breath, "Is he the son?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Does he?" I mean, here's his mom's body is 50 feet away. And I said, "Does he know what happened to his mom?" And he said, "No, he just thinks she had a problem with her knee and fell to the ground." And I mean, how do you forget something like that? How do you ignore something like that? And I went to a makeshift memorial for her, and I met her mom. And I remember I didn't know what the hell to say to the mom. I had no clue. But I just walked up to the mom and I hugged her and I said, "How are you doing?" And she said, I don't know. I'm gonna go on." And at that point, her knees buckled. And if you, it's an experience I'll never forget. Her knees freaking buckled. I was the only thing that was holding her up. That is so powerful. But I just think that most supporters and anchors, quite frankly, care less about that stuff.
Mm.
They just view themselves as messengers, nothing more.
Mm.
And I could never do that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that it really took a toll on you, and I know that we're going to go into some of the things that you've faced with mental health issues
Mhm. And
and
addiction and
addiction.
alcohol. Yeah.
Where at what point in your career did this start? Like what really like where did you feel like this started when
Well,
you
I
were
think based on this post that I reread, it started back in 2015. I mean, in the post, I was saying, I realized I was asking for help, um, but in a very indirect way. What I realized was that I was just walking around in a pall of sadness. I've never used that word ever, of that phrase ever in my life. And I thought, wait, where did this come from? But that described it. I was walking around in a pall of sadness, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And when I heard people with stations say, "Oh, you're just fascinated with death," or "Why would you do this? Why would you care?" I just was dumbfounded, going, "Wait, don't you see that I do care? That's what I'm doing, is because I do care." And they just wrote it on. And I, sadly, what I did was, I mean, let's be honest. The main anchor, the number one guy in the entire Bay Area, just like a police officer, just like a firefighter, is not going to ask for help, because then you'd be viewed as weak.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I wanted, was for me to be viewed as weak. So I kept my game face on. And instead of asking for help, I drank. And that was the way that I chose to deal with it. Biggest mistake I've ever made in my entire life. But I didn't know. I just didn't know any other way, and I didn't feel like I could ask for help, because people would see me as a sissy, as weak. Like, all you do is read the news and make a lot of money and blah blah blah. And that's why that's why I think that what Michael Phelps did and what Simone Biles did was amazing. They have a way bigger platform than I do. And what they did was say, it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And Simone Biles, I mean, some of the comments that she got for withdrawing from the illness were disgusting, despicable. People told her she was weak, blah, blah, blah. But she did it, and she stood up for herself. And so did Michael Phelps. I mean, who would ever think Michael Phelps would have mental health issues? My God, he's the most decorated Olympian in freaking history. And yet here he is saying, I have these issues. That was so huge. And I think that the most important thing that I can say is that don't make the mistake I made. Don't isolate yourself, hide, and worry. talk about it, talk to people, reach out, and but in our society, like for example, if I have a broken arm, you're going to go, you see my cast and go, oh man, I'm so sorry. But if I cracked mind, you're going to go, psycho. And that's just the way it is. That's just the reality. And that's not right. Mental health is just as bad, if not worse, than having a broken arm or a broken leg. But we don't recognize that. We just look at it as it's a cracked brain, the person's weak, blah, blah, blah. That's a real chance. It's a real mistake. And I know, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, okay.
And I know so many people are suffering from it. I mean, I've done posts on this, and I get thousands of comments. And I know it's a huge deal, but everyone is afraid to talk about it. That is what has to change. And Michael Phelps and Simone Biles have helped in that regard in so many ways.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's what you mentioned earlier was you were the number one, broadcaster in the Bay Area, and you couldn't really ask for help because that would make you feel um
Weak.
weak, right? And I think that's a big issue in our society today is we have these great people that are just killing it in their career, whatever that might look like, right? Whatever that might, their hobbies, sports, whatever that might be, and they're facing something, addiction, mental health, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
and they don't ask for help, or sometimes they're even lying to themselves because they know that if they are honest with themselves, that they won't be able to handle it, and it could really destroy or end a career.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'll tell you what changed my perception about mental health. Without realizing it, I was still looking for answers. And so we had what's called the Ghost Ship Warehouse fire in Oakland. 36 people died in this horrific fire at a warehouse. And I mean, it was horrible. And I interviewed a firefighter about that. He was a firefighter who went in there. He saw things that no one, quite frankly, should ever see. And my whole point of the interview was to ask him, how do you deal with something like that? And he said, I'll never forget this. He told me that we all have a backpack. And when we see things that we can't handle, or we do things that we can't handle, it goes in our backpack.
Mm.
But it never goes away because you're not dealing with it. It just goes in your backpack. And eventually your backpack gets so heavy that it's weighing you down and you can't move. And the only way to deal with that backpack is to deal with the things that are in there. But he said, as a firefighter, I couldn't do that. What would all the guys in the rig think? But I'm cuckoo, that I'm not going to be there for them in a certain situation. I mean, he's since retired. And I think that had that was a large reason why he retired early. And so I've always looked at that as, wow, what a great analogy. And I stuffed so many things in my backpack, and it just weighed me down. I to the point where I couldn't move. And the only thing, again, that I knew at that point to do about it was to drink, because what drinking did for me was it numbed. It just numbed me. But numbing yourself is not the answer. The answer is dealing with it. But dealing with it is freaking hard. It's really freaking hard. So yeah, I made a horrible choice.
At what point did you realize that you needed to make a change?
I think I realized it for the longest time. I just didn't want to admit it because it felt like, that's what it always felt like to me, was there's this big mountain and there's no way I can climb that mountain. No way. So I might as well just continue what I'm doing because I can't do that. And it took me, quite frankly, until the biggest change in my life happened when I was arrested, when my brother called 911. And I'll back up just a little bit to explain some of the circumstances. I have a black daughter, adopted a black daughter. My dad and my brother were both against me adopting a black daughter. My dad said, she's only going to cause you problems. And so when my mom had dementia and we were going to take my mom to hospice care where she would die, the day before she was going to be moved, I texted my dad and I said, I'd like to come over with Callie tomorrow and just say goodbye to Mom. His direct quote to me was, why would you want to bring her? This is a family matter. Why would you want to bring her? And yeah, I went freaking ballistic. I was so angry. And my dad refused to talk, refused to say a word. And so when my brother and his wife came out from New Jersey, I thought they would help mediate things. They didn't. They just took my dad's side. And so when I went over there to confront them, within 45 seconds, my brother called the police, 911, and he attacked me. And I don't know. I just don't know what to say to that. Obviously, I have a responsibility in this, but my dad and my brother will accept no responsibility at all. My brother just wants to hurt me. Yeah. And he did. He destroyed me. And my dad is, I don't even know why he's angry with me. I have no idea. But he is, because they've always blamed me for everything. And it's real easy to blame someone as opposed to actually taking responsibility. And they're great at blaming. So I was arrested twice in 10 hours. And at that point, I realized I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this life. I'm so sick of being sick. I'm so sick of all of this. And at that moment, I changed. At that moment, I stopped drinking, went to and still go to 5 AA meetings a week. It's a group I never thought I'd be in, but yet here I am. It's embarrassing, but at least now I know that I no longer have to lie. I can tell people exactly who I am. I've been clean for 10 months. I've never felt better. But it's still sad because in the end, I lost my dad and my brother for something that I don't even understand. But you know what? I can't control them. In my view, they are both racist. They just aren't. They're both just evil people. It's just who they are. And ironically, my dad has spent his whole life in philanthropy, running foundations. And his specialty was giving out funds or grants to minorities. That was that's what he did. He made such a difference in so many people's lives. But I think what you really find is that he was great when the minorities were out there. Didn't have to really deal with them. He could just help them, but they weren't in his backyard. Same with my brother. They weren't in his backyard. But all of a sudden, Callie came along. Now they had a black kid who was in their backyard. And they never accepted her. They never loved her. My mom was the only one who gave her unconditional love. And that's just really sad to me. But I saw their true colors. And my life was deeply affected by what they did to me. And again, I have some responsibility, absolutely. But that's just the way it is. And I feel like I've lost my family now because I had the audacity to adopt a black kid. And we didn't set out to adopt a black kid. We said we'd take anyone. Callie just happened to pop up. I love her to death. I have two daughters, a white daughter and a black daughter. And I never knew, I always thought, well, God, if we adopt, it'll be like I'll love my real daughter more than my adopted daughter. And you know what? Nah, there's no difference.
Mm.
They are both my freaking daughters, and I love them more than anything. And Callie has opened my eyes so much to what it's like to be black in America, what it's
Mm.
like to be a minority in America. And growing up in Berkeley, I always thought I knew, always thought I understood, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I understood nothing. And seeing things through her eyes, it's really been eye-opening to me.
Mm.
For some reason, my dad and my brother could never accept it. I'll never understand why. Callie didn't do anything. She's just a beautiful kid, but they just couldn't accept it.
Wow. You mentioned earlier, I want to make sure I heard that right. You said you were arrested 2 times within 10 hours? Was that
Yep.
what was it for?
Well, so my brother and his wife live in New Jersey, and they came out, and I was hoping that they would ask us, they would work as mediators to get me and my dad to be able to talk about what my dad said about my daughter. So I remember, but I realized very quickly that my brother was on my dad's side, and that my brother felt the same way about Callie as my dad. And so on this particular day, I texted them over and over, going, why would you want to do this to Callie? Why would you want to hurt Callie? You made Callie cry. And they had no response, none whatsoever. So finally I said, you know what? I'm just going to go over there. And I went over there, and I was so angry. I mean, I will admit that I was so angry. I was a dad protecting his daughter. I was furious. And I went over there, and again, within 45 seconds, my brother not only called 911, but attacked me. Yet I was the one who was charged with attacking him. I was the one accused of making terrorist threats because I said, I want to get to the damn bottom of this. And so I was arrested, and I plan to file a complaint with the police once I figured this out. But I was arrested by the police, and they kept me for 5 hours and then released me. And so I don't have any experience with being arrested. I've never been arrested before. So I had to use a bail bondsman. And when the bail bondsman took me out of the jail cell, he told me, call me within 1 hour, and give me your credit card info. I said, no problem. So I went home. I couldn't find my phone anywhere. Couldn't find it anywhere. And so I searched my apartment. I searched my car. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I drove over to my parents' house to see that maybe when my brother attacked me on the front porch, it was somewhere in the bushes. So I'm out there with a flashlight trying to find my phone. And my I couldn't find it. So I had no choice. I had to call this guy. I didn't know where he would revoke my bail. I had no idea. So I reluctantly rang the doorbell. My brother came down and went like this, flipped me off, and told me myself. And so I kept ringing the doorbell over and over. I did that because I wanted the police to come. And at that point, again, I've been up all day, hadn't eaten anything, and I needed to calm down. So I had a drink in my car. I didn't drive drunk. I opened the drink when I was in the car. I'm sitting out there in front of the house in my car. Well, the police arrested me for DUI. I mean, I still don't understand that because I wasn't driving. I'm sitting in my car. And the police also told my ex-wife over the phone that A, my brother never should have called the police, and B, they knew he stole my phone. They just couldn't prove it. And so that's how I ended up getting arrested twice. And my brother, because he is such an evil man, not only called 911 knowing exactly what would happen, but he then went and spoke to the media about me. So my daughter in New York had to read headlines in the New York Post saying, disgraced former anchor arrested twice in town. And you know what? I think the thing that's so interesting here is that in 10 months, I've never found my phone. Imagine that. Nowhere. I went 3 places that day. My house, my car, my dad's house. Lo and behold, I never found the phone. There's only one explanation. My brother stole it. My brother also went on my dad's phone without my dad knowing and blocked my daughters from calling my dad. What kind of person does that? It's just not normal. My brother is, we always used to joke that my brother was going to go postal. And it was a running joke in our family going, God, thank God he doesn't own any weapons. Well, my brother finally went postal. Went postal on me without weapons, but he did it by calling the police. And again, I'm not trying to say that I don't have any responsibility in this. Of course I do. But the way they see it is that I'm the only one who bears responsibility. And we all know that's not true. My brother is just going to die angry. My dad is just going to die angry. I begged them to talk to me. So because just tell me. Okay. Not a word. Not a single word. And so that's basically what happened. Just so you know, though, I have reached a plea deal with the DA where all of the charges, the assault charge, the terrorist charge, the public intoxication charge, all of those will be dismissed. What I have to plead guilty to is what's called a wet reckless driving, which means reckless driving with alcohol involved. I don't really know. I mean, I'm okay with that. It's the best I can do, but I don't really understand how I can be accused of reckless driving when I wasn't driving. Again, I was sitting in my car, parked in front of my dad's house. But you know what? If that's the best deal I can get, then I'm cool with it. I just want to move on.
Yeah.
And I can't move on until all of this is taken care of. And it's been a year. It's been a freaking year of me wondering. And I'll just tell you one other thing. So these are all misdemeanors, correct? My brother actually told the DA that he wants to fly out here from New Jersey and give a victim impact statement. The DA was stunned. My attorney was stunned. No one gives a victim impact statement on a misdemeanor. No one. But that's how angry my brother is. And it's just really heartbreaking to me because at the end of the day, I've lost my family. I still don't even know why. I just lost my family. And I have to accept that.
Yeah. I wanted to go back a little bit is because you mentioned the root of this. You started drinking. You started dealing with this through drinking. I think you said 2015 maybe, and started dealing with these issues. But how did you end up? Like you have to go live on the news. Like you have to go on air. Like how did you put that great face on, great tone, whatever that might have been? Like how did you like make sure that you were on point when you
You
were
know,
on it?
I think what happens, I don't think what happens. I know what happens. When you're an addict or an alcoholic like me,
Yeah.
you just learn to deal with chaos. And
Yeah.
you learn how to fool people. And that's just what happens.
Mm.
I would be careful only to drink at certain times. But it was still affecting me. But I would you just learn. That's what addicts do. That's what alcoholics do. We learn. That's why it's the big lie. We learn how to do the big lie, and we learn how to cover things up. But sadly, you can only cover things up for so long. And finally, it hit a point where I could no longer cover it up, and that's what happened. That's when I went into rehab. At that point, everyone knew. Uh, it had just become so bad that I could no longer cover it up again. But addicts like myself, alcoholics like myself, are great at covering things up. You just learn that that's how to deal with things. And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad I'm not in it anymore, is that I don't have to remember who I lied to, who I said this to, who I said that to. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can just be me. And that's the best feeling ever. Is I can honestly say, yeah, I'm a recovering alcoholic. Yes, I am. And that's who I am. And if you can't accept that, I'll get it. But this is just who I am. And it's so great to not feel like I don't have to lie anymore.
Yeah.
What a great feeling.
And then how did your time at KTVU end?
Well, it ended because, I mean, I'm still not quite sure, but when I look back on it, I think that, I went to rehab, I came back out, I was on so much medication that I looked shitty on the air. And
Yeah.
and again, I'm not gonna shy away from my responsibility. But what they used to fire me was the Gabby Petito story. And so Gabby Petito was a beautiful young woman who was killed by her boyfriend. And at the time, the search was still on for her boyfriend. No one knew what had happened. And so we kept doing incessant Gabby Petito coverage. Now, this happened in someplace like Wyoming, I think.
Yeah.
But yet we would do pieces on her every night. And I used to say to the producers, why are we doing this? Who cares? She's from freaking Wyoming. This doesn't matter to me. And I remember one of the producers tried to explain it to me, be going, well, she's a social media influencer. And I said, wait, what? She goes, yeah, she has like 4,000 followers on YouTube. And I said, I have 575,000 followers on Facebook. Who cares? That's not a reason to continue to cover. So one day, I was so upset about our coverage that I wanted to do, and TV lingo is called the tag. And what that means is, after we come out of a full-fledged piece, a reporter piece on Gabby Petito telling us nothing, I would then say, and these were not my opinions, these were all the trivia. And I said that on average, 2 to 3 women die every day from domestic violence. On average, most of them are Black. And on average, most of their stories never make national television. And the news director went ballistic. And I remember telling her that we all know the only reason we're covering Gabby Petito is because she's a cute white kid and there are good pictures of her. We all know that. If it was a cute Black kid, we wouldn't be having this conversation because we wouldn't be covering. If it was a cute Indigenous kid, we wouldn't be having this conversation because you and I both know that we wouldn't be covering. Well, that did not go over well with her. And the next day, they called me in and they suspended me. And they told me that, I'll never forget this. They said, we're concerned about your lack of news judgment. And I went, are you guys crazy? I have more news judgment than either one of you combined. And lo and behold, after my story went national, almost every single news organization in the country started doing pieces about why are we covering Gabby Petito so much? And I thought, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because we all know why. And all I wanted was, let's have an honest discussion about this. That's all. And so that was what they used as the formation for firing me, because I complained about Gabby Petito. And you know what? I do the same thing tomorrow. Growing up in Berkeley always taught me question authority. and follow your heart. And if everyone's going right, don't be afraid to go left. If you think going left is the right direction, then go frickin' left. And that's what I did. And I know I was right. I mean, we all know I was right. The coverage of Gabby Petito was despicable. Even her dad was embarrassed by it. I mean, and it's insane. All I was saying was what everyone knew, but no one was big enough at Channel 2 to stand up and go, good point.
Yeah.
Instead, they just crucified me.
Wow. Yeah. How long ago was that?
That was in 2021.
Oh, that was 2021. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been clean now?
10 months.
10
10
months.
glorious months. Yeah.
What?
I go to the gym now instead of drinking. And it's great because I have a Batman tattoo on my shoulder. And if you're gonna have a Batman tattoo on your shoulder, you better have a badass shoulder. Otherwise, it's like, really? Got a Batman tattoo with a wimpy shoulder? Come on now. Can't do that. Come on.
Yeah. What have you learned through this 10-month journey of being clean?
Well, I've learned a ton about myself and just how I read something today that Lou Holtz said that, in your life, actually, let me find this real quick because it was really powerful to me. He said, life is 1% of what happens to you, and 99% how you react to it. I thought, wow, I don't react well.
Yeah.
I do not react well, and I need to look at myself. And I need to stop blaming others, but looking at who I am and looking what I could do differently. And that's what I think I've done. I even if I blame someone and I was absolutely right, still wasn't necessarily the right way to go. And I've just realized that I need to look at me. I need to understand who I am. I need to understand how I react. I need to understand why I get angry. All of those things. And I think that's part of what it takes to become a recovering alcoholic as opposed to an alcoholic. You need to look inward. That's what the 12 steps teach you. You need to look inward. And so I've done a real inventory on my life. I am not perfect by any means, but I have sure as heck looked inward. And in some cases, it's been really disappointing what I saw. And so I just have to accept that and change that. I can't keep being the same person I was. I can't keep being like my dad and my brother. And I was. They were both going to die angry. I believe in karma. Karma is and they're going to face karma. And you know what? Had I not changed, so would I. And I don't want to be like that. I just don't. I know I'm better than that. So that's what I've learned in the 10 months.
I think just hearing your story, and thanks for sharing and being so authentic. I've been learning a lot just sitting here. Mental health and addiction can be in many different forms. It's such both are such big issues in the world that we live today.
Yep.
I think many people are at the stage that you were talking about earlier is they know they need to make a change, but they don't want to go over that mountain, meaning they keep doing it because that's what they know, right? So they keep drinking, they keep doing whatever whatever that addiction is, or they know that they're facing some issues. So for those listening out there on this podcast, what encouragement can you provide for those that are dealing with mental health and addiction? Because both of these issues are larger than ever. It's been
It's very simple. what I have to say. I mean, I wish I had a broader answer, but it really is. It's simple. You talk about it. You admit who you are, and you talk about it. You don't isolate. You open up. And there are people, so many people, who can relate, but it's scary. It is really scary to open up because you're afraid that people are going to go, "Oh, excuse me, you're a freaking drug addict. You're an alcoholic. You're a cokehead. You've got mental health issues. What the hell? I don't want to be around you." But you know what you'll find? And I promise this, what you'll find is that there are so many people who are dealing with the exact same things that you are, and they will be very accepting. Honesty is what's so important. And you know what? If you open up to someone that can't handle it, all that tells you is that person is disgusting. So it boils down to don't be afraid to talk and do not be afraid to ask for help. That's the most important thing of all. Do not be afraid to ask for help. That's what makes you strong. Not asking for help is weak. Not asking for help is just going to keep you down the same path. Asking for help, a big person asks for help. That says something about you. That says I care. That says I matter. That says I want you to know. And I guarantee that good things will come from asking for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. And the worst, I think where it starts too is you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You need the help.
But I think, you know what, honestly, I think addicts like myself, we all know. We all know. It's just we're afraid. That's what it is. We're afraid to ask for help. But we all down inside know. I mean, anytime you are questioning yourself about things like, do I drink too much? Do I do this too much? Do I do that too much? Anytime you're even asking yourself that question, it means, yeah, you do. And so we all know it's just a matter of whether we're going to have the courage to ask for help. And for the longest time, I did not have that courage. It took me getting arrested twice in 10 hours. My brother calling the police on me and speaking to the media and destroying me. It took that before I was finally willing to actually go, okay, I can't keep living like this. I need help. As despicable as my brother is, I need help. I can't just blame this on him.
Mhm.
You know, I need help. I'm sick of living this kind of lie. I'm sick of living this kind of life. I don't want this anymore.
Mm,
I know there's something better out there for me.
mm. I actually had one more thought that came to mind before we wrap up. How did you deal with all that bad publicity that came, not only when you got let go from KTVU, but also when this headline came up, the you got arrested.
You know what? It's been very difficult. I lost 3 jobs. I can't even volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club in Oakland. That's how bad it is.
Mm,
And I've had a very hard time accepting it. There's a part of me that gets so angry. Um, but I have no choice. I mean, it is what it is. I know what my daughter saw in the New York Post. I know, you know what honestly keeps me going? Is that I know karma is going to be a bitch for my dad and my brother. I
mm.
mean, that's just what I think. And in the meantime, I'm going to fix myself. I can't control either of them. They
Yeah.
have to live. My brother has to live with knowing what he did. And you know what? There's nothing I can do about it.
Mm,
All I can do is be the best I can be, and hope that time tends to heal, and 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 know that um, at some point I can have stories written about me where they go, "Wow, you've been clean for 2 years? Seriously? Tell me about your life." And all of a sudden, that may change the dynamic because I know what people think of me right now based on the headlines. And I just have to deal. It's out there, and there's nothing I can do about it except be the best person I can be. That's the only solution.
Yeah, and that's what's the most important as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. So, what are you doing today, Frank? Let all the listeners probably want to know what you're up to today.
Well, I've got two dogs here who they're both little tiny dogs, and they bark like crazy. And so I take them for as many walks as I can, and then I have some errands to do, and then I hit the gym. We have a gym where I live, so I go there 6 times a week, and it literally transform my body. It's really cool to see, and um, so that's what I'm doing. I mean, I don't have. I wish I could say I had this really cool, great life, blah blah blah, but I'm just an ordinary guy. I mean, I really am. I wish I was still working because that's my passion. And maybe someone will hire me, maybe not. But if they do, I can guarantee it'll be the biggest media story of the year in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And I've told stations, if you hire me, you can do a breathalyzer test on me anytime you freaking want. And if I fail to pass that, fire me on the spot. And but it takes a big person to give someone a second chance or a third chance. I hope someone will, but you know what? I'll be fine if they don't. I have money saved. I'm fine with money. And if I get to spend time with my daughters, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. How old are they?
So my older daughter is 23. She lives in New York, works for iHeartRadio.
Oh, wow.
My younger daughter is 19, and right now she's working two jobs: a security officer job at sporting events, and working at Home Depot, and saving money. And then we plan to send her to Southern in Baton Rouge this fall. Southern is a historical Black college, and that's where Callie wants to go. And I love that she wants to be around. She wants to be around people who look like her, and I think that's freaking great. And I love that. And we always, sorry, that just gets me emotional, but it's her exploring her Blackness, and I welcome every second of that. I want her to do that. She's just a great, awesome kid, and she loves New Orleans because she went to another all-Black school there, Southern in New Orleans, but didn't like it there, but loved New Orleans itself. And so I just say more power to her. And I just can't wait to see her blossom at Southern in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge, just for people who don't know, is about 45 miles from New Orleans. So it's where LSU is. It's a cool little city. So I'm so excited for that.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Frank, it's been really amazing to hear your story, and thank you for being so raw, authentic, and an open book. I think your story is, for those listening, is not only those listening, but those that are following you on social media. It's your story. The more you share it, it's going to make an impact and change in people's lives. Because I think just hearing your story, it opens up the conversations that people are not willing to have.
And that's, you know what, honestly, I'm so glad you said that. That's the whole point. Is no one wants to talk about stuff that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And my brother and my dad sure don't, but so many others don't either. And that's what I think is so important. Again, I go back to Michael Phelps and Simone Biles. They opened up a conversation on something that was uncomfortable for a lot of people. And Simone Biles especially paid the price. I mean, the comments against her were outrageous. But that's what we need to do. is have these conversations. And that's what I hope comes from me coming out and talking and doing whatever I can to facilitate those conversations. So thank you so much for having me. I really freaking appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope those listening out there really are able to hear from your story and learn from it as well. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, me too. You take care, my friend.
Thanks.
Bye.
Well, I really hope that you enjoyed as much as I did learning from Frank Somerville, not only his recent challenges that he's had, but also how he has overcome his challenges and hear more about his story. It was amazing for me to hear his story and journey of someone that I grew up watching on television. I was an avid KTVU watcher of the 10 o'clock news and those from the Bay Area. I really hope that this was really insightful for you all to learn from such a dominant figure in the Bay Area and also in local broadcasting and local news broadcasting, that is. And so I really hope that you enjoy, and this is what the podcast is all about, is sharing, bringing people on from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and taking a deep dive into their story. And I really hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. So I really hope that you had a lot of takeaways. And you can go to my website, CameronSingh.com, if you want to connect with me. Like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And really hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you catch the next one coming to you next Tuesday. And also, if you are not watching this episode or you're listening to it, you can watch the video version on my YouTube channel, and you can find that on my website as well. You can go to my YouTube channel and take a look at the video version of the episode as well. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh.